Keith Haring's body of work requires a unique perspective to analyze, as his death at the young age of 31 resulted in his career being cut short. As a result, his work is relatively homogeneous and only features a small number of developments in terms of subject matter and style. Haring was born on May 4, 1958 in Pennsylvania. From childhood, Haring developed a love of drawing. His father, an amateur cartoonist, encouraged him and taught him basic cartooning skills, while popular culture such as Dr. Seuss and Walt Disney also served as early artistic inspiration. Haring grew up during the 1960s, in which televised events such as the moon landing, war protests, and race riots were memorable and influential to his future social-political beliefs, as well as the development of his iconographic language. This can be noticed in his use of the TV screen, flying saucers, radios, and nuclear symbols as visual motifs that represent control in his later work. In 1976, Haring attended the Ivy School of Professional Art in Pittsburgh, studying commercial art before dropping out 2 semesters later, realizing that he was not interested in becoming a commercial graphic artist. He moved to New York in 1978 at age 20 and enrolled in the School of Visual Arts, where he studied semiotics, the study of using symbols as language, as well as experimenting with performance, video, collage, and installation. However, drawing remained his passion. This period was significant for Haring, as he became drawn to the rich art communities that existed outside of galleries and museums. Subways, clubs, dance halls, and the downtown scene were among the spaces that Haring admired. In frequenting these spaces, Haring met artists, musicians, graffiti writers, and performance artists who made him reconsider what it means to be an artist and who gets to appreciate art. He rejected the elitist conventions of galleries and museums, instead viewing public art as superior to the closed art world. Haring held a strong admiration and respect for graffiti and searched for a way to participate without taking attention away from the population of graffiti artists who were mostly Black and Latino. In 1980, Haring's knowledge of semiotics and visual language, as well as his appreciation for public art and graffiti, resulted in the birth of his subway drawings. Haring noticed that the unused advertisements in the subway stations were covered with black matte paper, so he purchased some white chalk and began to do quick, impulsive drawings on these spaces, often as a way to begin a dialogue with the public about social issues and messages. These drawings were both individual works as well as part of a greater collection, with many recurring symbols and motifs. In his journals, Haring describes his drawings as visual poems, in which the pictorial elements are able to be interpreted by the viewer. These 3 subway drawings, completed in 1982, are separate individual works, yet still connected. We can see the creation of Haring's pictorial language that he will continue to develop through his career: the nuclear symbol, robots, television, crosses, and dogs. Many of these symbols stem from influences from Haring's childhood and the events that he witnessed on screen, as well as his educational background. Hieroglyphics are also cited as an important source of inspiration from Haring's time studying semiotics at SVA. The image of the dog, often depicted with a somewhat human form, calls to the Egyptian god Anubis, who watches over the dead. The cross comes from Haring's upbringing as a Christian and represents a device to commit torture or murder. Yet these pieces also speak to power imbalances and money. It was important for these works to be located in a public space, and Tony Shafrazi explains that those who frequented the subway did not go to galleries or the MoMA. Haring brought the art to the space of the real people. These drawings speak to Haring's passion for social justice and fight for change by initiating a public conversation through art. The subway drawings were just the start of this type of activism for Haring, as he produced hundreds of them between 1980 to 1985. In 1986, Haring painted the Crack is Whack mural as a way to bring attention to the crack problem among minorities in New York. Interestingly, Haring was arrested for vandalism after completing the mural. However, the public support of the piece allowed him to avoid being charged. This is an interesting piece of biography, as the piece still exists today and is now treated as a landmark along New York's FDR Drive and continues to be maintained by the city. Crack is Whack shows Haring's passion and willingness to speak up for those who may feel voiceless, a notion which continues as Haring creates work to bring attention to the AIDS crisis. Haring's Safe Sex 1985 is a significant piece historically, socially, as well as on a personal level for Haring himself. Haring wrote in his journals that he was proud to be different, proud to be gay. However, with the AIDS crisis hitting New York in the early 80s, there was an increased notion of fear surrounding the topic of sexual health and rampant homophobia. Despite this, Haring remained sex positive, encouraging safe sex rather than demonizing sex altogether. This work uses his semiotic pictorial language, the X's symbolizing otherness, in this case homosexuality and illness. His depiction of this serious topic in his pictorial, colorful art style made it easier to initiate conversations about AIDS, and he continued producing pieces to bring attention to this social issue up until the end of his life. Haring was diagnosed with AIDS in 1988 and died due to AIDS-related complications in 1990 at age 31. So how does biography impact how Haring's work is interpreted? If you are like me, you have likely seen Haring's work before, whether it be on a poster, a book, a piece of pop culture, or in a gallery. His work is recognizable and incredibly significant to this day. However, recognizing Haring's complex development from observation to creation, as well as his stark individuality and social and political activism, showcase the depth to the themes of his work. He created a universal pictorial language that could be understood by the public and those without a background in art. He calculated where his art would be made and displayed as a way to ensure these messages were received by the public. He believed in the accessibility of art and devoted his work to spreading messages supporting social change. He showed that artists can be successful without relying on galleries, museums, and exclusivity, proving so through his thoughtful on-location murals and opening of the Pop Shop in 1986, where he sold his work for affordable prices on t-shirts, buttons, magnets, and toys. In this way, the images that Haring created transformed from simple illustration into a manifesto, a belief that art is for everyone and that human connectedness liberates the soul.